For those of you who don't know, Sonic Generations, which released back in 2011, which was a while ago, is getting a remaster this October called Sonic X Shadow Generations. And if the name of the game doesn't sell you enough, it has a shadow campaign that looks phenomenal in my opinion. However, there have been some discussings online of people saying that they think the game looks too much like Sonic Forces. Now, as someone who is making the mistake of trying to 100% Sonic Forces, I'd like to, give my 2 cents on it, and also just go over things I'm excited for about the game. And without any further ado, let's get to the video. Alright, I figure I should probably start off with the Sonic Generations part first, because that is what concerns me the least. Personally, all I'm looking for is that the game controls pretty much the same as the original. I know they've added the drop dash for Classic and Modern Sonic, which is a nice addition, especially for Classic Sonic, but, I'm not really needing much more. I just want it to feel the same, because the game controls really well, in my opinion. I think that's some of the best Boot Sonic we've ever had. Fight me, I don't know. But, just don't screw that up and I'm a happy camper. And then for graphics, upscale the game so that it can be played on a lot more TVs and monitors that we have nowadays, but otherwise, I think the game looks perfectly fine as is. From a visual standpoint, I think it's vibrant, it's beautiful, everything's got a nice look to it, and I don't think they really need to change anything. But that's just me. However, there is one thing that I would like to be changed. It is such a tiny nitpick that only applies to me or people who are like me who are completionists. And that is the red star rings, how they're displayed in white space. Now, if you've played Generations or you've tried to go for red star rings, you will know that it does not show which one you've collected. It just shows how many you've collected, which is not handy for me, because sometimes, if I'm not watching a YouTube video trying to figure out where the red star rings are, I'll be like, okay, so where do I need to look for these other ones, right? Which is something that Forces, surprisingly, does very well. In Sonic Forces, when you're going to select the stage, it'll show, how many red star rings you've collected, right? And, all 5 of them. If you've collected them, it'll show which one you've collected. So if I collected the 4th one, it'll show up in the 4th slide. If I collected the first slide, so forth and so on. So, dang, you know what I mean. Anyways, I want them to do that for Generations, because that makes my life a lot easier. So I'm not having okay, which ones have I and have I not collected, especially when I'm watching those videos and it's going through and I'm I don't remember if I collected that one or not. But honestly, it's not necessary in the slightest. It's just something I hope they put in the game, which they don't have to at all, because I think it'll still be great as long as they don't mess up how the game feels. And that's just me.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Alright, it's time for the main course. For the majority of people, including myself, this collection is really about the ultimate life form, Shadow the Hedgehog. And the Summer Game Fest trailer certainly gives a lot of reasons to be excited for Shadow Generations. Come on, we're getting Kingdom Valley and Shadow's getting wings. That is legitimately one of the coolest things I've ever seen from the Sonic series, hands down. Not to mention, we also get to use Chaos Control in Shadow stages, which is so cool, and I think that it really helps to set Shadow's playstyle apart from Sonic's. And speaking of Shadow's playstyle, gameplay from the first stage of the game was revealed, being Space Colony Arc from SA2, and not only does the stage itself look beautiful aesthetically, but the level design honestly looks like a huge step up from what we've gotten in recent years, in my opinion.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man.
That being said, after looking at different playthroughs of the first stage, I don't see it. For the majority of the stage, I'll say. Because when you look at Forces, the major problems with it were, one, the game was constantly taking control away from the player, or had simplified the stages, or segments of stages, to the point where all you had to do was hold down the boost button, and nothing could stop you. There was no spikes, nothing did damage, no platform that you had to jump over, sidestep. Nothing that really deviated significantly from the main path. And 2, a lot of the 3D sections in the boost stages in Forces were straight lines or rail grinding segments that had very little interactivity for the player to really engage with. And when I say straight lines, I don't always mean just straight. There can be turns, but with Forces, a lot of those turns are automated because you can't go the majority of a 3D segment without a dash panel and another dash panel and another dash panel. And that's where one of the big problems are. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you can't do that in a Sonic game, right? Having bits of automation sprinkled throughout a level is extremely common for Sonic. And it's honestly welcoming as a bit of a break from the high-speed action if and only if it's implemented correctly. Plus, most 3D levels are hallways. If you look at Generations and Unleashed, the majority of those levels are honestly hallways. But the key difference is that the player is in control, and those stages demand that you react to things that are going on. That is good level design. Yes, it can be a narrow hallway that goes on for a bit, but if I'm constantly having to dodge stuff, jump over stuff, looking to get onto something that leads me to a faster time, that's what you're looking for. However, and keep this in mind, it is okay to have just short segments of a level where all you're doing is boosting and nothing's stopping you. If, and I'll say this again, if and only if it is short, because it makes you feel fast or it gives you a short break from the action of the stage. And I know I keep saying this, but it is short. It is not anything longer than probably like 7 seconds. Because then you get into either some platforming or some reaction-based stuff, or you go into a 2D segment. But the key with it is that it doesn't overstay its welcome. And that is the main problem with Forces, is that a lot of it overstays its welcome. When I look at Space Colony Arc, I can clearly see multiple pathways that can either lead to getting a faster time or some kind of collectible, which is inherently what those pathways are made for. While yes, there are straight lines and hallways within the stage, it is by no means as bad as it was in Forces, and a lot of them are avoidable by taking a different path within the stage. Plus, when control is taken away from the player, it's mostly for something that's cinematic, like when Shadow destroys the giant rocket using Chaos Control, which, can I just say, is one of the coolest QTEs I've seen in Sonic games, personally. Or when he meets Black Doom and is transported to a different environment. In fact, the most egregious example of quote-unquote poor level design would be the Radical Highway / Westopolis segment where Shadow is chasing after Black Doom. And to me, at least, it doesn't seem as bad as people are making it out to be. But I do agree that a little more interactivity would be welcome towards the beginning of that segment. Otherwise, I personally think that the stage looks great, and Fidel from Gamescage really highlights the great qualities of the stage way better than the official gameplay Sega sent out to people. And a little side note while I'm thinking about this gameplay, the BioLizard boss fight looks phenomenal. It does great visually, it's menacing, it's ugly, and it makes good use of Shadow's skill set, and honestly, that's all I'm really asking for. Bosses aren't really my thing, but it looks phenomenal. Before I wrap up this video, I'd like to briefly go over some other things that will be in the game that I'm excited for. First of all, having the Adventure 1 and Terrio skins are an awesome inclusion, and I really hope they continue to add more skins that reference the past of these characters, like Sonic Riders. That would be cool. Secondly, I'm super excited to explore the open zone hub world, and from the images that we have, it seems that they've taken some notes on what did and didn't work with Frontiers, most noticeably being that the platforming objects did not visually align with the environment. And lastly, while it is being reported that the length of the Shadow campaign is shorter than Generations, I hope that the stages for Shadow's campaign will be equally as replayable as ones for Sonic, and that the side content will be just as enjoyable. In case it wasn't clear enough by now, I'm super excited to get my hands on this game in October, and I really think that the quality of the Shadow campaign will be on par with, or maybe even better than Generations. While my hopes are very high right now, I do recognize that Sonic Team has missed the mark a few more times than most of us are willing to admit, but I really think that Sonic X Shadow Generations is gonna help set the franchise back on the right path. Or not, who knows. If you made it this far, I want to thank you so much for watching the entire video. This type of content is something I've wanted to try for a while now, and I really hope you've enjoyed it. I want to keep experimenting with what I put out for you guys, so if you have any ideas or suggestions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And if you want to stay updated for my future uploads, then by all means, hit that subscribe button. And with that, have an amazing day, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.